Okay, so we've been practicing on the leashing technique with Winston. As you saw in the first video, he likes to get up. And so one of the things that we did, we practiced on a couple auxiliary exercises to help him develop a little bit more self-control. We practiced the sit, and the focus exercise, as well as teaching him to stay. So we're going to go ahead and now try to leash him up again, and we'll see how he does.
Sit. Sit.
Do him one more time.
Sit.
This time hold up your hand like you have a treat.
Sit.
There you go. Keep that hand there, and so lean forward and keep it up.
Sit.
All right, let's put it back because he's whimpering again. All right, so let's go ahead and I'll tell you what. Let's just film. I'm going to have you just grab a seat there where she was sitting, and then you can grab a seat there. I'm not.
Okay.
We're not gonna. I won't use that before and after. I'm just going to
Okay.
explain the whole walk thing all at once. I'm going to have you film me.
Okay.
Winston, come here, buddy. Sit. We rolling? Can you get us both?
Yep.
Make it a little bit easier. Come here, Winston. Winston, come. Rolling.
Yep.
Come. All right, so in one of the things that Winston gets really worked up about is going for a walk. Now, I wanted to do a before and after video, but for various reasons, we're not going to post it here. So I'm just going to have one that's going to kind of encapsulate everything for the walk that we're going through. Now, he gets excited for the walk. His guardian narrates before the walk. You ready to go for a walk? You ready to go outside? You want to go outside? And this can get a dog more and more worked up. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you don't narrate to your dog. And if you get to the point where you think you have to spell out the word walk, you want to do the opposite. Instead of saying W-A-L-K, you want to say walk about 1,000 times a day so that it no longer represents the excitement of going out for a walk. That's what you've done, is creating an association if your dog gets excited when they hears the word walk. So basically the first step that I have is I walk to where the leash is. Now the leash is right here. This is a more cozy apartment, and so it's only a couple paces away. If you have a bigger house, what I do is I walk towards where the leash is. As soon as the dog recognizes what's going on, it's going to move in front of you because it's excited. It wants to get to the leash first so we can go for that walk. But because for dogs, whoever's in front is considered in the leadership position, if we let the dog walk in front of us and we follow the dog, then the dog thinks that it's leading us on the walk. So the first step is just to get up and walk to where the leash is without even touching the leash. And the second the dog's nose moves in front of your torso, you turn around, you sit down, and you ignore the dog and turn the TV back on, pull out your phone, read a magazine. The dog whimpers or whines or barks at you, don't look at it at all. We want it to understand that you cannot provoke any response from you whatsoever. Once the dog is settled down completely, you want to get up and practice this again. It'll usually take several times, but eventually the dog will realize as soon as I move in front, they lose interest in going for the walk, and I want to go for the walk, so I'm going to stay behind them in a follower position. That's an important part of their mindset. Second step is actually reaching for it. Now, in this case, when we were trying to go through these videos before, Winston had problems keeping his butt on the ground. So I went through teaching the guardians how to practice, how to teach him how to stay, and I also practiced teaching the focus exercise. If the guardians can practice both of these things within about a week, they should have a very strong response to both of those. Then when you go over and put him into a sit, then you can actually say stay and start reaching for things and moving around, and he should stay into a stay position. If not, that means we need to practice the stay a little bit more and in different capacities. Remember, for the stay and the focus, we want to practice these in different places in the house, different locations, different positions, different times of the day, with the TV on, with the TV off, with the radio on, neighbors yelling next door, all sorts of different variations. Once we finally can get to the door, the dog stays calm, then we ask the dog to sit, or better yet, tell the dog to sit. Then reach for where the leash is. Don't touch it, just reach for it, and pull your arm back. We want to make this motion, because usually when you reach, the dog gets up and they're ready to go. So what we want to do is just go back and forth several times without even touching it. And as long as the dog, at first the dog's like, getting ready to get up. And once the dog kind of stops doing it and watches you do it, that's when you're ready to pick it up and start going towards the dog. Now, a lot of people lean over towards the dog when they're talking to the dog. The higher you sit, the more rank or status you have. Make sure the dog comes to you. Don't go to where the dog is. You're the leader. The dog needs to come to you. Dog comes to you. Winston, come. Sit. I reach for it. I start bringing it towards him. If he gets up, then I would put it back and I would go sit down. So, or if he starts whimpering or getting excited, he stayed pretty calm because of, I think, some of the other work we did, we were doing. This is why I didn't do it before and after, because he wasn't anywhere near as bananas as he normally is. So what I do is I keep on reaching for it, and I break down each step along the process until I can reach for it, attach the leash to it, walk to the door, and he stays calm and seated throughout the process, or whatever I want him to do. I want him to stay seated until we get up and walk towards the door. Now when I get to the door, we talked earlier about some rules off camera. We talked about some rules in the session. One of the rules, the dog has to sit at the door before we go out. If I tell the dog to sit and he doesn't sit, I would drop the leash, go and sit back down on the couch and wait for a couple minutes. Wait for 1 minute, then go back to the door. Tell him to sit again. If he doesn't sit, walk away for 2 minutes, then for 4 minutes, then for 8 minutes. Keep doubling the length of time. Eventually he'll realize the only way we're going for a walk is I'm calm when I'm leashed up, and if I sit at the door and wait for the humans before I get up. Now, I have 4 rules for what I call a structured walk. This is not an everyday walk, but he lunges at other dogs, sometimes when he's on the leash. Now, some dogs got what we call leash aggression. They use fight or flight are 2 ways that dogs communicate with each other. And one of the things that a dog will do is if it's not comfortable with another dog is increase the distance away from them. Well, the leash prevents that from happening. That causes a lot of dogs to feel trapped, and so they lunge and nip at other dogs to try to move them away. So if that's the case, then the focus exercise is a great technique that you can use as soon as the dog sees another dog. If you say focus, it's looking at you as opposed to the other dog. It's a different steps than what we're going over now, but I just figured to mention. Now for this case, as soon as we can get the dog leashed up completely, when we're going to take it for a structured walk, first of all, I use a martingale. The clients here use a harness. I always ask my clients and everybody's told at a pet store, we got the harness because they said it'll stop from pulling. But one of the things the client asked me to help them with is the dog pulling on a leash. So a harness does not stop you from pulling. Harnesses are actually designed for dogs to pull. Now there's some that are supposed to be designed with different bells and whistles to prevent it. I've never seen one that actually accomplishes that. I like using a martingale collar. It is also referred to as no-slip collar. I put it on the dog, and I add a special twisted leash, which I'll show the guardians off camera. If you want to know the special twisted leash, you got to hire me to come to your home in person. But it stops most dogs from pulling immediately, and unlike prong collars or choke chains or shock collars, it doesn't stop the dog from pulling out of pain or punishment. It just makes it easier for the dog to feel more comfortable about the human and gives the human more control. Now once we're out on a walk, with a martingale collar, it's a very short leash. One of the first rules that I have for the dog is the dog needs to stay in position. I usually ask my clients which side of the... Normally this is something that would cause him to bark. You hear him whining a little bit, but we had just had somebody walking by a window. So my timing and my correction is good, and I took more authoritative posture, so we only had one bark, a little whimper, and that was it. So if your timing is good on your corrections for your dog, you should be able to stop things before you start. So I want the dog in the position, so either on my right side or left side. So pick whatever side. There's no right or wrong. It's whatever side you want. Pet and say crash. So let's say the dog's supposed to be on the right side. If he's on the right side, I want his shoulder, his front shoulder, aligned with my hip. I want him next to me, not in front of me. Like I mentioned earlier, I think in a different video, whoever's in front is considered to be in charge. So if we let the dog walk in front of it, it's going to be much more reactive to other dogs and people we run into. Next to us or behind us, it's going to be more of a follower position taking our lead. So rule number 1 is keeping his shoulder aligned with your hip. The correction for the martingale with the special twist leash is a very quick pop and relaxing the leash. Dogs have something called an opposition reflex. If you pull them into position, they will guaranteed pull against you, and then you're going to have a tug of war the whole walk, and that's not going to be very much fun. So when I do it, I jerk it straight up, and then I go immediately straight down. Rule number 2 is keep your arm nice and relaxed going straight down. If you're walking and the dog's starting to roll in front and you're pulling the dog back like this, you're putting tension on the leash. So your arm needs to be right, nice and relaxed. Now if the dog lags behind you, I don't pull from behind, I just let my arm go limp and keep walking. The leash will keep him coming with you. So rule number 1, dog stays in position. Rule number 2, keep your arm nice and relaxed going straight down with no tension on it. And I usually have a straight leash, not taut, but straight, so there's not a lot of extra room. Rule number 3 is no stopping and sniffing. A dog's nose controls 60% of their brain. Now I have some trainers and people who work with dog behavior who's like, I heard one of your videos that said dogs can't sniff. I never say that. What I say is the dog can't stop and sniff. If the dog stops to sniff and I stop, then the dog's controlling the walk. In this case, we need the dog in a follower position. And the dog's nose controls 60% of their brain. So if he stops to sniff something, you'd hold up T-bone steak here, he can't pay attention to your steak even if he wants to. Crash? Good job. So, so basically, if you're coming across a lamppost or something and he wants to sniff, if he goes over and sniffs it as you're walking, that's fine. But as soon as you start walking away, if he stays there, let your arm go limp and just keep walking, and eventually the rig will get him coming with you. He can't tell you where to go. Now for this, to say a dog can't sniff would be cruel. Sometimes what I'll do for this sort of walk is I'll go on the walk, and maybe 3/4 of the walk, it's a structured walk, walking in a heel next to me. The last quarter of the walk, I'm gonna let the dog sniff around and have some good time. It's kind of like if you do your work, you get a reward at the end. It's not very healthy or stimulating for a dog to always be in a heel next to you on a walk, even though for us it's really nice. Now if you do it with incorporate a lot of treats, the dog can enjoy it, but dogs need to have some time to explore. It's stimulating for them mentally as well as psychologically. Rule number 3, no stopping and sniffing on the go only. Number 4 is no marking. Now I work in different parts of the country. In the Midwest and play in the South, people have big yards and they have fenced in yards, and the dog just goes outside to do its business. Out here in California, I'm in Long Beach today, and a lot of people don't have a yard, so we walk our dogs to do business. What I would do is I would assign a location outside your house close to the beginning of the walk, tuck the dog there and let it do its business. As soon as it starts peeing, say business or whatever the word is. As soon as it gets done, pop the treat in its mouth, say business and pet it, then we go for a walk. That's a powerful thing to do. Is if I take the dog out and you potty, and then I immediately take you for a walk afterwards, well, that's a reward for going potty. So that can help, especially if you have a puppy. So basically, when I go out for the walk, I don't let the dog mark on everything. Dogs who are marking things, especially male dogs, are really claiming territory or marking. It's a leadership activity. And so everything between your house and the furthest point away that your dog marks on is your dog's territory. So the dog likes to bark at people who walk by the house here. We're in an apartment. Well, there's a yard, there's a tree right outside. People are walking in between that tree and the house. And so the dog looks at that as his territory. So violator, you're walking in my territory. I didn't give you permission to do that. So basically, I let him pee at the beginning of the walk, at the end of the walk, but not on the walk. Pooping is different. Pooping is not marking. If they have to poop, I stop and let them poop. Just make sure you clean it up. Otherwise, you'll be like Culver City, and you can't even take your dogs to any parks, even if it's on leash, because so many people there didn't clean up poop. So be a responsible dog guardian. Once you get to the point where, like I said, your dog is listening to you, then you can do, and there are other things that you can do. If you want to teach your dog to walk in heel, this is different. This is a rig that is going to keep your dog walking next to you, and it's going to help your dog see you as more of an authority figure. Walk is not the best way to burn energy, but it is a great way to show leadership for a dog. Because you're setting the pace, the tone, the direction, and the dog has to stay next to you or behind you. A couple little tricks that you can do is having a whole bunch of treats. Something I'll do is in between every driveway on a block, I stop somewhere randomly. I tell the dog to sit. It sits. I give it a treat and say sit, and then I walk somewhere between the next 2 driveways. Think about it. If you go out on a walk and you pass 50 driveways, that's 25 sits that you practice every walk. If you walk once a day, every day for a week, that's 200 plus sits. Math is not my strong suit, but the more repetition your dog has, the easier it gets. And after a while, your dog starts looking at you. Is this where he's going to stop? Is this where he's going to stop? Oh, she stopped. And the dog will start sitting on its own. If you walk up to somebody, your dog just sits down next to him, and people are like, wow, what a well-trained dog. You're like, yeah, of course, we hired doggone problems. But no, what you would, is you're teaching your dog a more polite way to be. Just like if you have kids, you teach your kids not to run up and interrupt adults when they're talking, to come up and say, excuse me, Daddy, can I ask a question? And people are like, wow, your child is so nice. Well, you've just taught them the manners that you want. Most people, look at his eyes. Most people, he's got what we call sleepy eyes, which means he's very comfortable and relaxed. But most people fail to teach the dog how they want it to behave, and then we get very upset for not doing what we haven't taught them. But we don't do that in any other part of our life. If I have to do a job, somebody's going to teach me how to do the job first. Once I've been taught and I don't do it right, then that's on me. But if I'm not taught how to do it properly, that's not on me. That's on my instructor or my supervisor or my manager or whoever it is, because they didn't put me in a position to succeed. So by going for a structured walk, it should help Winston feel more comfortable with one of his guardians who he is, I think, more protective and possessive of. And that will help tremendously, taking him off the burden of responsibility off his shoulders. So I think he's basically, as soon as one of the guardians goes that time, I think he's on duty the whole time. Yes? Excellent. Now pet him and say off.
Off.
Excellent. All right, we're going to go for a little bit of a walk so I can show the guardians how to use a special collar. She's doing, one of the guardians is on fire right now. She's doing everything right. So this is a synopsis of how you can get your dog to stay calm. One thing I forgot, Your dog's energy before the walk is the energy they're going to carry with them on
Off.
the walk. Oh, a couple things I forgot. So make sure your dog practices being calm in the house
Off.
before you actually leave. And a great way to do this is, for most dogs, the only time the leash gets put on me is when we're going for a walk. So one of the tricks that you can do is practice putting your dog on a leash 4 or 5 times when you, before you're going for an actual walk, at times you have no desire to take them for a walk. We have a tendency to think of the walk itself and how much time we have left, and the dog doesn't cooperate, we get frustrated with the dog. Well, in this case, I have 2 minutes. Let's just practice leashing the dog up. And go to the door, tell the dog to sit, and if it sits, pet it and say sit, take all the stuff off, put it back, and then go back to doing your thing. So you want your dog to think, just when the leash comes out, that just means I have to do this, 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 and this. And sometimes we'll go for a walk, most of the time we don't. Now I'm not so excited, I can listen more clearly, and the humans have practiced this over and over and trained me and taught me how I'm expected to walk, to act before we go for a walk. So these are, this is not necessarily a quick video on how to get your dog to stay calm and behave with you on what I like to call a structured walk.